do that. And I want to just tell you a couple things. We do have Spanish interpretation. I don't think we're going to need that tonight since it's only you folks, but we do have it just based on the community demographics. This meeting is Alameda County Department of Environmental Health. Purpose of the meeting is to discuss environmental conditions at the site, how those will be addressed to support future redevelopment. It's only you, so we have a short presentation. Happy to go through that, and you can ask questions throughout the entirety of the presentation. We do have the developer on board too. We'd like to focus mostly on the environmental issues. If you have lots of questions for the developer, Seth and Alex and Lisa have made it very clear that they're willing to meet with interested community members separately anytime at your convenience to discuss those two. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Okay, next slide, John. So I think I told you what the purpose is, really is to provide an overview of the redevelopment project that's proposed and the environmental conditions that need to be addressed, and most importantly, to hear from you folks. This is our agenda. You can read that. I don't need to do that for you. Next slide, John. I think you know where the site is since you own property right next to it, so I'm not going to try to educate you on that either. Next slide. Okay, this is the proposed development. I'll give you just a moment to read this. And as I said, there's historic contamination that needs to be addressed to support redevelopment. Alameda County Department of Environmental Health is the agency that provides regulatory oversight of that. So they approve all the cleanup plans, and then when the work is actually being done, oversee that as well. Right now, we have a proposed plan to address contamination, and that's subject to public comment. The public comment period runs from December 11th through January 15th, and all comments are considered before Alameda County makes a decision on that plan. Once they do, we let folks that comment know what their decision was, and we move forward. Okay, next slide. And then again, this is just the team members we have. We were just talking about this today, and we thought we need to put the community on here as well. But typically we have a general contractor, the developer, the environmental consultant, that's Paul King again, and then oversight agencies, City of Oakland, of course, County of Alameda for environmental issues, and the Air Quality Management District for air quality issues. And then Drew, I think from here on out, it's you.
Yeah, thank you for.
Any questions on that first? Just
not so far. No.
Great, perfect. Just chime in when you got one.
All right.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, thanks for coming tonight. Again, my name is Drew York. I'm from Alameda County Department of Environmental Health, the local oversight program. We also referred to it as the LOP. I'm the caseworker that's been assigned to the case. My boss is also on the line, Paresh Khatri. So if I can't answer, I may push it over to him, but I'm pretty confident we can answer any questions regarding environmental issues tonight. Among other programs, the LOP oversees redevelopment of sites with residual contamination from historic land use. This could mean residual contamination from commercial industrial operations such as foundries, automotive service stations, dry cleaners, or residential home heating oil and waste oil tanks. This agency's role is to facilitate protection of human health and the environment by overseeing subsurface investigations to understand and delineate known and potentially unknown constituents of concern. We also refer to that as COCs in soil, groundwater, and soil vapor. We oversee corrective and or remedial action measures to protect human health of construction workers, the surrounding community, future occupants. And then more importantly, we oversee community and human health protection measures to the adjacent surrounding community while investigation, corrective actions, and redevelopment activities are implemented at the site. Tracy showed a couple other regulatory agencies. I wanted to go through kind of their role. The City of Oakland Planning and Building Departments, they conduct reviews and approvals of the planning and building permits. So that's what essentially these are agencies. What I guess Alameda County does not oversee these actions. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District. They oversee air quality during construction activities, including dust and air monitoring and street sweeping. And then the State Water Resources Board oversees stormwater BMPs, or best management practices, and monitoring. That includes like silt fencing, erosion control, hay bales, detention ponds, if required. Thank you. Next slide. Yeah, so it's for site investigation findings. First, I'm going to talk about essentially the historical operations. This site is about a half an acre, and it consists of one parcel. As you know, since you own businesses close to it, the current configuration of the site consists of a two-story warehouse building and asphalt parking lots to the west and south of the building. The warehouse was constructed in the 1920s and was used as an automobile repair facility between the 1920s and 1940s. Printing operations between the 1930s and 40s, a candy factory, and then a machine shop. And then further on in the 90s and 2000s, a data processing facility, and then a warehouse for a company called Super Nutrition. The parking lots on the site were historically occupied with homes from the 1900s until about the 1970s. Due to the proposed redevelopment at the site, which we talked about before, that includes the construction of 3-story buildings for 18 townhome units. This agency opened a new site cleanup case, and that's referred to RO342323. And the developer, with consent from the property owner, entered into a voluntary remedial action agreement in March 2020 to assess the type and extent of subsurface contamination. Numerous investigations have been conducted at the site since 2019 with and without regulatory agency oversight in soil, groundwater, and soil vapor. Investigation results indicate historical operations that predate the current owner identified the following: the presence of elevated lead in shallow soil, TPH, excuse me, let me step back, diesel and motor oil range, total petroleum hydrocarbons, that's also referred to as TPH, in groundwater, and then VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, including a solvent called tetrachloroethylene and chloroform, as well in soil vapor. Thank you. Next slide. So for the soil impacts, soil samples have been collected across the site, essentially to evaluate potential impacts in shallow soil from the historic land use. Investigation results indicate lead impacts above regional water quality control boards' environmental screening levels for direct residential exposure were detected in various locations across the site. Vertical and lateral delineation of impacted soil indicates lead impacts above ESLs are limited to the upper 3.5 feet above below existing grade in the northern portion of the site, and then about a foot below existing grade in the southern portion of the site. Also, soil impacts from diesel and motor oil total petroleum hydrocarbons were detected above laboratory detection limits, but were below Tier 1 environmental screening levels, also known as ESLs. And the ESLs, the Tier 1 ESLs for those is a gross contamination level. The developer's environmental consultant has submitted a draft corrective action plan, also known as a draft cap. So essentially that's what this presentation is about. The draft cap proposes to conduct excavation and removal of on-site TPH impacted soil and backfill with imported clean fill using our guidance, our clean import characterization guidance. The draft cap also proposes excavation of lead impacted material with with post-excavation confirmation sampling and over-excavation at locations where confirmation samples have not met direct exposure ESLs for residential use. And lastly, the draft cap proposes consolidation and capping of lead impacted fill material, as well as some of the soil excavations under building foundations and hardscape. Proposed consolidation will occur in a large excavation area to an anticipated depth of about 6.5 feet below ground surface. The soil will then be capped and covered with a demarcation layer or a demarcation fabric, and covered up to approximately 2 feet of clean fill on top of that. Thank you.
That's a lot of information. Do you have questions? You do. I would too. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a few. So one is, so where there's a parking lot now, that will be, they just wrapped it up, we removed the asphalt that's there?
Correct. Yeah, and I can let the developer kind of talk about their proposed development.
Yeah, that's correct. We'll be removing all of kind of the existing asphalt, and as part of this remediation and cleanup process, we'll be removing some of the shallow soil and lead contaminated shallow soil as well, and then re-pouring our foundations, and then a mix of, I would say, landscaping and what we call hardscape, or permeable surfaces and pavers and things like that.
And what would be the mitigation efforts for, so since we're right adjacent to it, so that there wouldn't be blowover of, say, lead and such onto our property?
Yeah, and we're actually going to go into the community protection measures. Okay. But to answer your question kind of now, we have robust community protection measures in place. That includes real-time air monitoring with a dedicated on-site environmental professional. And that would be during all remedial activities. There's also, which I'll go into further, other, like truck routes, and then also decon procedures for trucks and things like that, which I'll talk to in a later slide.
Okay, thank you.
And if I'm not mistaken, you're doing, you have perimeter air monitoring as well, right?
Correct.
So yeah. The goal is to keep all of that inside, so it's not actually going outside. And if there's an exceedance, Alameda County can they quickly take measures to address it. But if it's super windy, Alameda County can stop work until they can get control of the situation. Okay. And there's a number posted on the site for you to call. Although now I hear that you're supposed to say this when you call for young kids, but that you can call to if there's an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I needed to clarify. I think I was saying we, the developer's environmental consultant will be required to by this agency to conduct dust and air monitoring, which includes the real-time professional as well as perimeter monitoring as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions, Mel?
Well, no, not so far. I have a lot of questions, but they're actually, I think, probably for a meeting with somebody, because I have a lot to do with timing and stuff like that. It's not really environmental stuff.
That's okay.
Very interesting.
Okay. Should we continue through our going then? Okay.
Please.
Absolutely. Sorry, that's not me. That's my dog. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So groundwater at the site was encountered at depths ranging from about 18 to 21 feet below ground surface. TPHD and TPH-MO, which is diesel range and motor oil range, total petroleum hydrocarbons, were detected in the central and southern portions of the site, and those exceed the Regional Water Quality Control Board's Tier 1 ESLs for residential odor and nuisance levels.
And Drew, what is an ESL?
Oh, environmental screening levels.
So levels
Um,
set to be protective of public health and the environment, and
Correct.
if they're out there, it means that you need to do something, whether it's more investigation or cleanup. It depends where it's hitting.
I have another question. So would it be fair to assume that those elements have leached from that property into the adjacent properties, or likely so?
They have done some investigations to show that it's relatively well delineated, but that would be a question for
Paul?
Yeah, I was
Paul.
gonna say, Paul.
Yeah,
wants-
Paul, can you expound? Has there been, I think have offsite properties been impacted? I think that's the question, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, would
Paul?
you know that? I mean, but yeah.
Well, I'm taking a look at our water quality data. Mel, you said you're at on 19th Street.
Right.
Are you on the same side of the street as?
You're adjacent to the parking lot, actually.
Oh, okay. So on that first aerial photo that we looked at, you're in the house right next to that parking lot on 19th.
Yeah, so we're so the two houses, and we're the second house from the southern parking lot,
Mhm.
but we're adjacent to the western parking lot.
John, you want to go back to the aerial?
Yeah, so it's really the parking lot that is on 20th Street, right?
Okay, so
So where you see the proposed site, where, yeah, right, there you go, where the arrow is. That's our property there.
okay, thank you.
So we drilled. Okay, so what you need to know is that if you take a glass of gasoline and you throw it out on the sidewalk, first Drew and his boss will get distressed, so don't do it. But if you did, you know that the gasoline would evaporate on you pretty quick, right?
Right.
Okay. You also know that if you take a glass of diesel or a glass of oil and you throw it out on the sidewalk, it's not going anywhere. It's not going to evaporate on you. It's just going to sit there on the sidewalk. Okay. So we've got diesel range stuff and we got oil stuff in the ground. Okay. And some of this, we drilled a hole right out in the street. I think it's right in front of the second house over on your side of the street. You can probably go out and see a hole about 4 inches diameter in the street that we filled up with cement and then probably patched over with asphalt. And that's where we drilled. And I think we found a little bit of oil in the water. Okay. But the oil is not going to be evaporating up and vapors coming up out of the ground into your property. Okay.
Right.
This would be in the water about 20 feet down, out in that part of the in that part of your property. Okay. So we also looked for these chemicals that will evaporate easily and would come up potentially as vapors out of the ground. And we're not finding any elevated concentrations that would cause Drew or his boss to like say, hey, you got to go in there and clean that stuff up. You find a lot of this stuff in the ground in a lot of places. And the times that we have to start doing something to clean it up is when the concentrations get to be high enough that it could pose a concern for health. And so we did find some vapors on the corner area and in under the warehouse, but
Correct. Yeah, the northern portion of the site, and as well as in the vicinity of the printing shop, the former printing and automotive repair buildings. Those were on the northern portion. If you look at and sorry, Paul, for overstepping here. If you look at the draft cap on GeoTracker, It has a bunch of figures that show the concentrations of what we're talking about. It also shows the locations of former operations, such as the warehouses, as well as the printing shop or automotive shop.
And so we have figures in this draft corrective action plan that show what we found in soil, what we found in water, and what we found in the vapors in the ground. Okay, and that borehole that's out in front of your property, I'm going to take a look at the table. We didn't. It's not a chemical that's going to be coming up out of the ground. It's not going to have vapors that would be a concern, and so based on that, the main concern would be we've got something in the groundwater. No one's drinking the groundwater. It all comes from East Bay mud. So the assessment of the risk is that there's not a risk of concern posed by this stuff in the water 20 feet down in the ground. Okay. Did that get you?
Thank you. Mhm.
You're welcome.
Should we continue or should we continue?
Carry on.
Okay, we're carrying on.
So
Go ahead,
yeah,
Drew.
that's a good segue into talking about the soil vapor or soil gas impacts. So elevated concentrations of soil vapor or COCs, which I mentioned are constituents of concern, including tetrachloroethylene, also known as PCE, and chloroform, were found exceeding the vapor intrusion human health risks. They were detected in subsurface investigations conducted in 2019 and 2020. And as I mentioned, this was primarily in the northern portion of the site and also in the vicinity of the former printing and automotive operations.
Drew,
The
I'm just going to have you, I don't know, we throw around this term soil gas and soil vapor, and I'm not sure. Do you folks know what that is? Because it's.
Yeah, I think so. Well,
Okay, good.
VOCs and we get.
Great. Perfect. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, so the draft corrective action plan proposes to install vapor mitigation engineering controls. We refer to them as VMECs. These include a subslab vapor barrier and a passive subslab venting system. And essentially this is to minimize the migration of VOCs in soil vapor from beneath the redevelopment building to minimize exposure of risk to future occupants. Additional VMECs or vapor mitigation engineering controls proposed in the draft corrective action plan include the installation of trench plugs, which will be installed in utility trenches for utilities that would be entering the site. And essentially that mitigates the potential for preferential vapor intrusion along those utility corridors. The draft corrective action plan also proposes the implementation of institutional controls to provide long-term protection to human health and the environment. These institutional controls would include a series of a couple things that I'll talk about now. This would be the VMEC, the vapor mitigation engineering controls, and the trench dam operation maintenance and monitoring plan. And essentially that's documentation of the installed VMEC components, which includes as-built drawings and specifications, photo documentation, and responsible party information, details of the operation maintenance monitoring activities, emergency contacts, protocols in case of a system failure, and copies of field forms to be completed during emergency or routine inspections. There also will be a land use covenant on the property. And then there will also be a risk management plan, also known as an RMP, for potential future subsurface work at the site. This essentially is for non-technical audiences, identifying the location of residual constituents of concern, the potential health effects from exposure to the COCs, and engineering and institutional controls that are implemented at the site. Essentially, this provides detail for that non-technical staff can identify what work practices are unacceptable and can identify engineering controls if encountered. If you could go to the next slide, that would be great. Great, and this is this is what we were talking about before in terms of community protection measures. Essentially, we would be requiring a real-time continuous dust and air monitoring. Again, that's a full-time environmental professional on site during all work hours to monitor for dust. If dust is visually seen or the perimeter, monitoring around the property detect dust in the air above a certain threshold, then construction activities would be halted and additional dust mitigation measures would be implemented. Other community protection measures would be site security and fencing around the entire property, equipment, personnel, and truck decon or decontamination to essentially mitigate the spread of potential COCs outside the site. Inspection of public streets adjacent to the site and the use of a street sweeper if warranted. And direct load of impacted material into trucks to minimize the spread of impacted soil from stockpiles. Additional measures would be trucks following city routes that would be approved by the city of Oakland, and then also reporting, which leads to the next slide of communications.
I'm just going to stop though, because I know that let's just go back. I just want to make sure. Did we answer all your questions about the
Yeah.
offsite impacts managing?
Oh,
Well, one thing under community protection measures, does that also cover noise?
oh.
Noise.
Not from Alameda County Department of Environmental Health.
Okay.
It does with the city of Oakland. And Seth, I can turn it over to you. That's not my department, but maybe you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as Drew mentioned, there's certain requirements by the city of Oakland about decibel levels and amounts of time and things like that, which we always adhere to, whether we're doing environmental remediation or during the construction project. Would love to meet with you guys separately, and I'm sure you have some design questions and timing questions and things like that, and we can talk about timing of construction, when work's actually going to be performed and everything like that. But with anything we do, we always do our utmost best to keep the noise to the minimum as much as possible. With construction considered, and obviously keep an open line of communication with you and any of the other neighbors in the community to make sure that everyone is happy as much as possible. So yeah, as Drew mentioned, that's more of a city of Oakland requirement, but something that we adhere to in both parts of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, John. If you could go to the next slide. Yep. Thank you. And then, last with community outreach, there's communications. So there'd be weekly status reports that would be uploaded to GeoTracker. There'd be other things like signage posted at each end of the property and near the entrance and exit with contact information for the developer, as well as contacts, probably my name from Alameda County Department of Environmental Health. And it would, have some language that if dust or other environmental related issues are observed, then to please contact me or the developer, and we would then follow up and make sure that these are addressed. And then lastly is the schedule. as Tracy mentioned, there was a fact sheet that was sent out, and I'm sure you received that. And the public comment period for the draft cap is open between December 11th and January 15th. After which time this agency will then provide our comment once we have received all public comment and taken those into consideration. Today we're having the public meeting, and then once approved, it's anticipated that the remedial soil excavation and construction activities would start in the fall of 2021. And then obviously communications would be ongoing. Again, if you have any environmental concerns, you can contact me or Tracy or Seth. And then non-environmental questions, I would assume you can follow up with Seth on.
Yeah, John, can you go to the next slide? Because I think it has contact information there. So I'm Tracy, and I actually answer my cell phone. You can call me anytime, so you should take that number. And then there's Drew York information, and I'm happy to put Seth and Alex's emails in the chat box as well, if you'd like us to do that.
Drew,
John, can you do that? Great. Okay, so I think that sums up our presentation. How'd we do?
I think Paul had something.
Nope.
Drew, is that your phone number on there?
That is not my direct line. That is for the LOP department, I think.
Oh, but you can call me and I'll get to him, because I'm your best shot, really.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually, that's, I think, Dylan's phone number.
It is Dylan's
Yeah.
phone number. Yeah.
Okay.
Paul's got to memorize. And
Yeah.
Mel, Tracy works with us as well. So reaching out to her is effectively the same as coming
All
out
right, okay.
everything for you guys. And like I said, Alex and I and probably Lisa are more than happy to connect anytime, answer all your questions. And I'll caveat that fall 2021 start date with, we're at the mercy of the city of Oakland planning and building department. So
Right,
the date has the potential to change. And so we can definitely keep you guys updated as we get kind of closer. And really our goal is to kind of mobilize at the same time as much as possible and do the environmental piece, kind of roll right into the development part to try to minimize the amount of time that we're out there. So that's why they both say fall 2021, but really, we'll do the cleanup, remediation, mitigation, and then continue right into building the building.
Okay. Well, yeah, so great. Yes, you did well. So, yeah, so I think the bulk of the questions, that was very good for understanding a lot what's going on environmentally. And then the bulk of the other questions are logistical kind of questions. So we can email or call, or what's the best way to set up something to have a little chat?
Yeah, I think any works. I mean, well, why don't you maybe send either Tracy or I an email, and then I can just.
Now, why don't you give me your email and tell me how you like us to communicate to you? Do you like us to call, text, or email?
So for actually just getting information or for interacting?
No, just I'll reach out to you and we can set up something, but I'm just thinking,
okay.
what's your preferred method of me contacting you is my question.
Well, text is good.
Okay, I know how to text.
Okay.
I don't.
So let's see. So my number is 510 851 5192.
So 510-851-5192.
Yes.
Okay, I will text you and set up a meeting just to discuss logistics with Seth and Alex.
Yeah,
Great,
excellent.
thank you.
Great.
Ordinarily, I would say let's come meet, but maybe we can just do a Zoom meeting or a phone call, whatever works for you guys for now.
Yeah, Zoom is my preferred. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can set that up, and as soon as you like, we can do that. And we'll also let you know when as we move forward too, we can text you updates on the project, because forewarned is forearmed. I firmly believe that.
one way to put
Mhm,
it.
sure,
Yeah.
Indeed. All right, well, great.
And I just have one other question. Who is your what's your partner's name? We haven't met him.
Oh, here it is
yeah,
here,
so
but
I'm Geert.
can
that
you
is,
see, we don't
can
see
you
ourselves,
me?
so we don't
Or-
know.
Yeah,
How
Yeah, we
we're-
can see you.
okay, okay.
Oh yeah, we see both of you.
Good, good, yes. So my name is Geert. That sounds funny because I'm from Holland. And so that's spelled as Geert. That's
Pleasure to meet you.
Same here.
Yeah, thank you both for joining. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to talking soon.
Okay. Other questions or thoughts or anything?
Oh,
that we
we're
can-
very happy to be the only guest.
Honored.
We feel honored.
We're super happy to have you.
Yeah, we're really happy, and I'm happy that I got some questions. I could answer some of your questions. You know, sometimes we don't get a lot of questions, so we're happy to answer.
Yeah. And quite frankly, if there's other people in the area or neighborhood that are interested, we're happy to chat with them too. So please pass on my phone number. I'll text you and I'll give you all my information, pass it on. We're happy to meet with anybody and discuss the project, both the environmental and also the actual development itself.
Right, okay, excellent, okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
and
thank you very
We're
much.
gonna watch the news.
Right, really. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank
Happy
you.
New
Year.
Okay, so I don't think we have any other questions. This has been recorded. I'll also send you the link to that.
Oh, great.
And as I said, I will be in touch with you tomorrow morning to set up something in the very near term. And I think that ends our meeting for tonight. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
safe evening and enjoy and an enjoyable one as well.
You
You
too.
Good night.
Great,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Um, Okay. Oh, I thought I did it. Huh, okay.
Little red box in the corner, everybody.
It's not like,
Spanish folks and interpret, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, interpreters. You're free to leave now.
Okay, and I'm going to stop the recording.